So congressperson and city council. That's wonderful.
I didn't win those seats. I ran for them.
No,
Both of them were solid attempts.
That's fine. I appreciate people who get involved locally. Maybe during the panel, whatever. I bill myself as a localist. No one really knows what that means. But whatever. It's apt. It's apt for me, and it's mostly. I mean, it's most. In a nutshell, how do I put this? In a nutshell, I suppose at the local level, I would be more of a socialist leftist, and the higher up, further up you go, I'm more of a libertarian conservative. So it's really that, and it's just my approach. Like the problems we talk about, I don't dismiss them; they're real. I just, as far as as far as an approach goes, I'm more entrepreneurial, I suppose, in terms of finding solutions, right, and less less of an activist, and not to disparage or take away from activism or anything like that. It's just, as far as my personality goes, I like tinkering, I like solving problems, right? And for me, I guess, for me, activism, for me, and I'm not saying this is what it is, but for me, activism is like asking the people who are not doing their job right to do their job right.
It's a tool.
Well, look, don't get me wrong. It gets, it gets the word out, changes people's minds. Brings, I guess, a political will to things, and moves things in the direction of your activism. But in terms of, but for me, that just it doesn't speak to me as a way of going. I'd rather build things. I'd rather build the solutions, however small, however small or insignificant they may seem. I'd rather build them and get my hands dirty with them, just because for me, if I'm not involved in them, if I'm not engaged with them, I'm just it's just an idea in my head. It's just an idea in my head, and there's a bunch of gaps, and I fill them in with my own personality. And for me, this doesn't reflect reality.
Got it.
So it's only. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt. I have to think, as somebody who's been a political activist for over a decade, I've built a lot. I have built organizations, community organizations. I have gotten people into elected positions that actually changed the county. 6 years of work helped create the new local chair of the San Diego County Democratic Party. I'm in San Diego, in California, and I have built so much. I don't think I would be able to stand here as a researcher, as an activist, as a person who's actually a political strategist. I think it would be a misnomer to think that activists don't build, when I've literally done nothing but build as an activist.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. That's it. I get the way I describe it. I don't want to say I'm disparaging activists, because I do appreciate the work, right? And I do see how it's important. I'm just, I guess I'm trying to.
Because think about like environmental activists and what people have done, say protecting forests, protecting lands, and they did nothing more than be activists, build organizations, nonprofits, governmental institutions, getting people elected. Those campaigns are you have to build those. You have to get your hands dirty to build it, to be a part of the nonprofit sector. You have to be a part of that and get your hands dirty. So I guess for me, I would like to hone down on like what you mean by activism, because I think it's more broad of a term than what you're defining it as. By the way, I'm super intense, so please
no, don't worry.
No,
it's fine. It's fine.
I love talking about this stuff. I'm so nerdy, and like, there's a reason why I am so like engaged in this stuff, because I love talking about it. So please don't take anything that I'm doing as a like trying to be
I've literally invited you here so that you can talk to me. So
fair enough.
Go crazy. Don't worry about it. Okay. Yeah. And I guess maybe, maybe what I say is activism isn't maybe there's an intersection of what we're talking about,
Right. And I think that's important to describe, right? Because Like, even somebody in chat was like, yeah, activists literally build
Build
houses.
houses. See,
You know, like
no,
that's a real thing. Like, so we have to
right.
like,
Right. Building houses, okay. Building houses, okay. Coordinating organizations, okay. Great stuff, okay. Great stuff, okay. And you need that kind of organization to get people moving, to get people motivated, right? And it just, as far as it never spoke to me, and this is why.
that's
And
fair.
it never spoke to me, and this is why. Someone comes up to me with a great idea. All right, this is going to solve this. This is going to solve that. For me, it's like, okay, well, you've reflected your personality on this, and you've reflected your personality in the world. Okay, and now you're telling me some story that benefits you. Okay, your ego, whatever you're into. And I'm not saying it's bad or anything like that. I'm just saying that I don't have all the pieces of the information I don't have all the pieces, right? So I don't know. So if people are waiting for me to be like, yeah, gung ho, I'm going to invest all my energy into this, it's not coming. Because there's pieces missing, and I can't invest in that,
No,
and
and that makes sense.
yeah.
I guess where I'm at is I used to consider myself a political entrepreneur
Okay.
for a while. In fact, I think political entrepreneurship is probably one of the newer entrepreneurships that's existing in, at least in America, right? Where there are new campaign managers, like people who are just like scrappy, right? I
Mhm.
started my first campaign was a school board race, right? And that was my first victory that I was
Mhm.
able to achieve. And I built that. Like, and I've built campaigns, I've picked candidates and helped them fundraise, so then they raise money for the campaign and my salary.
Mhm.
Had my own consulting firm,
Right.
and my business was activism and
Okay.
campaign work and political work. And I think that when we look at the way systems work, like, especially when you're talking about social issues, I think political entrepreneurship is real. I think it's a real thing. I think people are making a living off of this. They have political capital. Like, for example, like if I wanted to go to, the county of San Diego and pull a favor for something, I can. Like, I
Mhm.
literally was talking to somebody. I was like, "Hey, like, can I get a position on the committee if I choose?" And they
Mhm.
were like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, we can create a committee for you
Right.
because you're super
Connecting
valuable."
people with the right people is very valuable. A lot of times there's
Yeah,
people who have problems and people have solutions, and they just don't see each other, right? And
yeah,
connecting them is so
and that's
important,
true.
because matching people with problems and solutions, okay, just it's so low energy for you, right? But it's so high energy and potential that it can deliver, because the two people, or the two parties, coming together, have all this energy and motivation to work together, right?
Yeah, and Montreal, and like people have heard me on stream, and one of the things that I tell activists all the time, the young new ones, the ones with the shine in their eyes of optimism, thinking that the world's going to change, like
Right.
I have had many conversations. So I'm 35 years old. So I served in the Navy for 6 years as a reactor
40.
operator. Yeah, yeah. There you go. So
Right.
you understand like a little bit of like that living of the life part
Right,
of
right.
things, right?
Things
And
don't
and
always turn out the way they were sold to you.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So for me, I feel like the bigger problem isn't necessarily the activists themselves. I think the bigger problem are the organizational leaders that are selling a bill of goods to these young new activists.
I agree.
Because what's happening is if you do this thing, you vote for my candidate, you do this thing, your life's going to be better. Those
Right.
people are no better than somebody who says I got a great scheme to get you rich.
Exactly. It's
Right?
it's a bit
And
of charlatanism.
it
Yeah, I
is,
wanna
and
I know you're getting to somewhere with it. I'll let you go.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely. And what's happened is because people have lost, their guiding light, they've been burned by some bad politicians, some bad
Vulnerable.
campaigns, some bad organizations because they're vulnerable, they want help, they want support, they
Yeah.
get disillusioned, and then you lose them, right? And those activists that are just like disillusioned, they have good reason to be disillusioned. So for me, when I look at like some of these activists, because I think there are good activists that are doing good work.
Mhm,
And I also think that there's misleading activists that are in it for themselves
mhm.
and want to put up this thing
Yeah.
and sell a pile of goods that if you support in this way and you volunteer your free time for the next 2 years, then you're going to be able to get this thing. And then you realize that the
Mhm.
campaign that they were running was complete garbage. And then that
Yeah.
campaign was destined to lose from the beginning. And so for me, that's the activism trope that gets me very angry. But I don't blame the activists that get disillusioned, because what I try to do is try to tell people is like, if you really are interested in activism, you're really interested in political change, stay in it for 60 years to a decade before you actually see any of your fruits bear, any of your labor bear
It's
fruit.
not that's not a very ADHD friendly strategy.
No. I just got I had a diagnostics, and so
Yeah.
I might be a little bit myself. But in reality, like everybody, it doesn't matter where we end on the spectrum. Everybody wants a quick fix, right? I mean,
Mm.
even the people, even on the conservative side, right? It's like, oh,
That's
if we
good.
elect
Yeah.
Trump. Right, we elect Trump, then we're gonna solve all of these issues. Like people
Right.
literally thought if they voted for Trump, they would get like a giant
Yeah, if
border
we
wall
cause a
that
little
had
chaos
political.
in the system, maybe something will change. And it's like, no, the system is very, very big. Okay. It
Yeah,
takes a lot of
yeah.
fucking energy to move this motherfucking boat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so all sides fall victim to this, right? And it is a huge problem
Yeah.
in the electoral process, because we don't know what is good strategies or bad strategies or just
Mhm.
fruitless strategies
Mhm.
or the establishment strategies
No,
or
I
the
think
corporate
all
strategies.
all
Like it's so
strategies
hard to figure out what they are
all the
sometimes.
strategies for me are basically undefined, right? Like I don't know what the value of this is actually going to be. Okay. And it might be with best intentioned, okay, and they found the best plan, but whatever happens, okay, chaotic life gets in the way, okay, and that's it. It's done with, and whatever you invested in it might go away, except for your experience and stuff, and that happens. It's not because something's bad or good, it's because it fucking happens. That's the nature of things, right? so
Yeah.
so so in terms of, if everything has to be, if everything has to be kind of random in its outcome, okay, then for me, and this is where the localism comes in, okay, if those experiments in doing something with the population happen at smaller scales, all right, it makes for a much more stable system at 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 large. At large, okay, the larger system becomes more stable because some of the small experiments might die off. It happens, okay. Some of them might have great asymmetrical success, okay, and a bunch of them are just kind of trying, right, and that way it's a slower process. I know everyone likes to get everything done now. That's why everyone likes big federal power and stuff, because we can get all the good things done right now, right, across the board for everybody. But I think it's, as a long-term strategy, I don't think it's sane, because if you put all your eggs in one basket on that scale, again, it's a random outcome. You don't know what the second, third, fourth, tier outcomes are going to be. All right, then you're rolling the dice with everybody, and that's why I like to keep, I guess, more systems smaller and more local, because although you don't get the speed of transition that you might want, it will go in whatever direction it goes more sustainably,
But
generally, as
but
a
I
philosophy.
will say, though, however, that's also a very idealistic point of view as well, to
Okay.
think that we can massively change the way people look at their local politics in a short period of time to actually start addressing some of those changes.
This is not
So
a
one
short
of the
period of time project, but
Oh,
go on.
I know it's not.
Yeah.
Like we've established that
Yeah.
these things take decades, right? Like
Yeah.
that's how that works,
Generations,
right?
maybe.
So maybe even generations, right? So the local strategy, and I've done a lot of local work.
That's
A
so
lot.
you said. So you said,
Yeah,
exactly. And so I
yeah,
wanna hear your
yeah,
perspective on this.
yeah. I have seen local campaigns go completely horrible, where like these candidates have great ideas and everything, and then nobody gets behind them. And I've
Right.
seen local campaigns literally have no money, get a
Mhm.
ridiculous volunteer base, and then just out unseat a sitting council
It's
president, right? Like
money
I have.
money and volunteers. It's all about motivating people to go put their energy in a certain direction, however you do it. Go. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the issue is that I believe in the local space, there's only so much energy that
Mhm.
exists that we can utilize.
Yeah.
Now, is that pot growing? Yes. However, there isn't a lot of money in this stuff.
Mhm.
So that's one issue too, is like I know so many people who are just amazing campaign workers,
Mhm.
absolutely just phenomenal people that can do such great work.
Mhm.
But the problem is that a lot of times these local campaigns don't have the resources to hire these amazing people.
Mhm.
And then what ends up happening is these really good people start working for wages that are basically slave wages,
Mhm.
starving for a
Mhm.
hope and a chance that their candidate might win when they have no money.
Right.
So what ends up happening, and this is my experience, is the establishment or the people who are the incumbents have all the money, all of the power, all of the clout to be able to do the mailers, the TV, the door
Mhm.
knocking, the door hangers, and all of those type of things. It is so difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible because I do
No.
think things are ready to change. It's
Mhm.
just I have seen local energy fizzle as fast as it's grown.
Mhm.
And what the problem is, and this is more of a media like problem systemically, is I get a lot of this is one of my spicier takes that my stream knows about. You know the documentary Bringing Down the House?
No, I haven't heard of it. Tell me, what's the synopsis?
Okay. So the documentary is about four it follows four congressional candidates running for office, all of them women, all of them progressive, but
Okay.
one of them is AOC.
Okay.
And one of the things that make me very frustrated about that documentary is the fact that they basically essentially lied to everybody who watched it.
In what
Because
way?
what they did is they sold that if you have these base strategies and these ideas, you can beat a person running for Congress that's been there for 20 years, and all you got to have is a good story and
Mhm.
progressive values.
Yep.
And what that did is it motivated so let me before I get to that point, before I
Mhm.
get to the next stop of the documentary, where the big lie was, and don't get
Mhm.
me wrong, I like AOC's presence in Congress. I think it's important to have young voices no matter how they show up. However, the story that AOC was just a bartender in Queens and sent in an endorsement to the Justice Democrats, and then somehow, some way, miraculously, they picked her name out of a hat and then rained $350,000 on her head is a complete and utter lie.
Okay.
What it was AOC was an organizer for Bernie for about 4 years before that, and knew the personal executive director of the Justice Democrats at the time.
Sure.
So there
She
was
was involved. She
insider.
was involved in the
She was
machine.
absolutely involved, which is kind of almost a sense of requirement to run for office, in my opinion, is to have some basic level of organizing skill.
You have to
Very
know people.
rarely, yeah, very rarely does a Joe Blow or Jane just walk off the street and walk into a congressional office. That
Mm.
is so rare, so uncommon
Mhm.
that it's like mystified when it does, and that's why they created the documentary. Now, I ran for Congress in 2020. Now, I didn't run for Congress because of this documentary. I
Mhm.
ran for Congress because I saw a possible path to victory
Okay.
6 years before.
Okay.
And I did my job.
Sure, you made
I
a play
worked in the
for it. Sure.
community. I did make a play for it,
Yeah.
and it was a long play. It was a long play to do it. And so that's why I ran, because I saw a positional space for me within the organizational work that I've been doing.
Mhm.
However, there was about 400 plus congressional candidates that were young, eager, hungry to actually do good in their country, and
Mhm.
almost every single one of those candidates were left on the field to shrivel and die. No
Okay.
progressive organization supported them. No candidates in the
Sure.
progressive community supported them. It
You
was
need someone
they
with an
didn't get any
infrastructure to
money.
sponsor you, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't have any donation infrastructure, and
Yeah.
all of these people were running on the lie that if I'm progressive, the money will come. I'm progressive, the votes will come. I'm progressive, and I'm going to have the ability
Right.
to know how to knock on doors and all of those type of things.
Hmm.
I think it's one of the greatest tragedies of our generation. This is why. Because instead of telling those people to run for fucking Congress, we could
Hmm.
have told them to run for school board, water board, city council, state assembly, local races that they
Hmm.
actually had capability to do. Instead of saying, hey, run for Congress, why don't you run for a seat that only has 5,000 votes?
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? And go
Right.
and scrap for it and go and get it in your local county.
Yeah.
That is where I think the misstep was. So I get really upset because I feel like they salted the earth of
Hmm.
all that young leadership because those young leaders either left the
They
party,
missed an
left,
opportunity to get involved in politics. Yeah.
yes,
To get
because
involved in leadership positions in politics. Yeah.
they got so burned. They
Mm.
were ridiculed. They were told that they weren't worthy to run for these seats. The establishment chewed them up and spit them out, and half of these people aren't even involved anymore, which is an
Right.
absolute tragedy
Yeah.
for our generation that all of these new young political leaders could have went somewhere, but
Hmm.
because of the get rich quick scheme or the political fast expediency, the changing the
Right.
world was a fucking lie.
Yeah.
And it stems so deep in the idea that people think that the only way that you're going to get anything done is being somebody like AOC,
Hmm.
or being somebody like Trump that's super uber wealthy and has all of the keys to the kingdom,
Right, they're not
right?
playing for the same things you are. Like you're, you're like, I need
Yeah.
to make a better life for myself and the people around me, and they're like, I'm gonna play some game. What's my Instagram count? Like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
exactly,
but
yeah.
those candidates though, I knew a lot of them. I actually started a Twitter group in when I was, because I just naturally organized. It's my thing. I was organizing a lot of these people called the Democratic Challengers,
Hmm.
and I had a website for them. We had a vetting process, and it was the only organization that actually gave any credit to these people that were actually running for the
Right.
values and not for some political endeavor. They were just literally running for their values, and they thought that that was enough.
Hmm.
And for me, it was that was the moment
Hmm.
in 2020 when all of those races were over. That's the moment the progressive movement died.
Hmm.
And I truly feel that, and it's forced people like myself who had opportunities to be more radical, right? Someone who had a backing, had a voter base, had people there to support
Hmm.
those policies that I was pushing forward. Now I had to then recluse back a little bit, reforge and rebuild relationships with the quote unquote establishment so I can continue to be relevant to continue the fight for the things that we're all fighting for.
Hmm.
While everybody else just said, deuces, I'm out of here.
Right. What
And
did they do with
and
their
and
lives
that's where we
generally?
are.
What did they
What do
do
you
with their
mean?
lives finally? I mean, after they stopped working. Are you saying they stopped working in politics? As you mean they?
Yeah, they went
Yeah.
back to their
Yeah.
daily lives. They went
Okay.
back
So
to the retail, business work, whatever they were doing before, they
okay, they
just
just
went
gave
right
up. They
back.
just gave up. Fuck this shit. I'm not doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, or
Do you think
some
there's
of
a
them said that they wanna create a party, but that's fairly fruitless, but I'm hoping the best for people.
do you think people, I mean, how bad do you think is the trust issues between people and the institutions that govern them
Oh, I
right
think the
now?
trust is awful.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even the Supreme Court has the lowest rating in American history.
Right.
An institution since the '80s was rated at over 95, 96%.
Right.
And then now they're getting dragged through the mud because it
Do you
became a political institution.
mm, I look,
Yeah.
I don't feel, I mean, I don't feel connected to this system that runs global affairs in any way whatsoever. They're just going to do whatever they're going to do regardless of my opinion. So all I can do honestly is do my best to is do my best okay, is do my best to decouple from them. Okay? No, I'm not saying everybody should do this. All right? I'm not going to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do with their lives because they have their own problems and they're the best people to solve them. All right. But all I can do is tell people how I solve my problems. Right. And in order to do that, anyways, and whatever, this would be my third business, but I don't want to make it money based.
Well, can I challenge you here?
Okay, go.
I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I just want you to just take this perspective in.
Sure.
The way that you solve problems
Hmm.
are related to who you are and who you are as a
Yeah.
person. So, like being a cis white male, I don't know your
Hmm.
orientation, so I don't know more than that.
That's
Uh,
probably an accurate representation of my
right,
labels.
right, and so the what is successful for you
Hmm.
may inherently not be able or accessible for
Correct.
others.
Absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely correct.
yeah,
That's why I would never tell anybody what to do. Like I'm not saying, oh, I do things this way, therefore I'm somehow better than you or something. It's just
right,
like
right.
this is whatever we talk about our ways of, I guess, approaching the world, right?
Absolutely,
And
absolutely,
and that's it.
and I
I
didn't
don't.
I wasn't trying to
Yeah, yeah.
challenge
No,
you
no.
in
I
that
I
way,
feel
and or
no, but right. As far as me telling anybody how they should think or how they should live their lives, unless you ask my opinion, then I'm not going to tell you, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
I do want to help. I do genuinely want to help people, right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
so that's it. So my way of doing it is right now. I've gotten together with a few people, some with capital, and we've gotten together and just built, I guess, a grow op. All right, but
Okay,
for food. Okay,
that's cool.
and that's it. And whatever. There's projects in cities, right, where they have community owned larger operations. So there's opportunity here to build something fundamental. Feeding ourselves as far as decoupling with whatever the fuck's going on out there. Okay, I think is number one. So that's what I'm going to work on. But
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I get that. I really, really do. So I guess so you say that I get like the idea that local politics is very internal. Like that's why local politics isn't popular on Twitch, for example. Like
mhm.
you talk about local politics, your numbers would
Yeah,
just
this
tank through
doesn't
the floor.
concern me. Yeah, exactly,
Right, right, right.
exactly.
Exactly. No, that's fine. I'm not trying to say that it isn't. But
Yeah.
what
No, no,
I will say
I
is
realize the psychological forces at play online. Don't worry
oh
about
yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But the reason I say that is it makes sense to say, yeah, in my local government, like
Mhm.
what I think is best for the community. If you think you need to spend a budget to put in a better pipe or better street or better street lights, like there's no Republican or Democratic way to fill a pothole. Right? Like it
Right,
you fill it,
right.
right? You know, and
I,
so like there's like that whole thought process around like the way we deal with our local stuff. So
mhm.
going and like zooming out a little bit because I think we fundamentally agree on the local level. I don't think we
Probably.
disagree.
Yeah,
I
probably.
think
This is the difference of approach to how to solve basically the same problems.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
I agree with you, like,
yeah.
strong local representation really does help build a better statesperson. Like, if you want somebody who's gonna be a good person who governs, a good person who legislates, find somebody who's been doing it for a few years that knows a little bit of how this, sausage is
Right,
made and put
right,
them in there, right? So, like, there's a place for political outsiders, but there's also a place for people who know what the fuck they're doing, right? Like, it's like if you're gonna build a house, you're gonna want somebody that knows how to fucking build a house to be in there to help you draw the blueprints, put up the supervise, and make sure those things are happening, right? You don't want
right.
somebody to come off the street and be like, "Oh yeah, I can build you a house." I've seen
Yeah.
people do it.
Yeah,
You're not gonna,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Hey,
you
you have
know.
a hammer. You have a hammer. Nail that, random person. I'm only gonna live in this all my life. You know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 exactly, right? Like that's how I kind of look at governance and like local like officials is that if you want to get a root canal, you hire a doctor, not a lawyer, or a dentist, not a
Yeah,
lawyer, right?
yeah.
Like that type of situation. So like when you're hiring a legislator or an elected official, you should probably hire somebody that knows a little bit about that stuff, right?
No,
Because
someone who works in the areas that you need problems solved in, basically.
exactly,
Right,
exactly,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So I do find that. So scaling up a little bit
Mhm.
because I do want to touch on, you said that you're like libertarian larger scale.
Yeah.
And I would really like to know your limits on that, right? Because obviously I don't think you think that we shouldn't have a centralized government. I wouldn't think that
No,
you
no. I think
yeah, yeah.
there's a place for more centralized power. I just think, uh, yeah, there's a place for centralized power. I just think too much centralized power is also a problem. Is also a massive, yeah, existential problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. So where I'm trying to figure out is like so giving you a little bit about my background. I know I've
Mhm.
talked a lot about myself here, but
That's the
I
point.
used to be a conservative, right? I used to be a conservative all the way. My last Republican president I voted for was McCain, believe it or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. So I've been a conservative. I've been that whole thing used to be my entire ideological mindset
Mhm.
of like the governance and all those things. Like I was pretty intensely Republican. Like I was pretty far right
Oh,
at one point in my
yeah,
life.
when I say conservative, I don't mean Republican. I don't mean like the Republican in the US politics, Republican. I mean, yeah. Honestly, the labels are fucking idiotic. The
Yeah.
labels about how to define, like, just ask me how I would approach this problem, and that's more of my position is. You'd have to talk about specific problems. You have to be very local about about the questions you ask me. You know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes total sense, right? So my concern, right,
Mhm.
with and please forgive me if my libertarian point of view is very American centric because that's
Yeah. No,
really what I
please.
have to work off of,
Right. Right.
right?
No, it's fine. Hey, hey,
So
we're
I
doing this
know that my
together. I
opinion
have
is
to
skewed.
interject little tidbits about myself. Don't worry about
Yeah, of course,
it.
and
Yeah.
I don't wanna misrepresent you either.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the whole when I think of libertarianism, right, I think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think about people who really want minor interactions with the United States government, and that includes how we interact with each other as well.
Mhm.
Like, so for example, I'm going to use trans rights because it's since it's kind of my expertise, and I'm working. Oh, just to let you know, I'm running the U.S. Transgender survey for the National
Okay.
Center for Transgender Equality. So I'm
Okay.
like running like a survey
Ooh.
in every 50 state and
Ooh.
territory. Yeah.
Oh, I have a question I want to ask you. But
Okay.
no, but you know what?
You want
I'll
to do
ask you
it? Go
next
for it.
time. Next time. You know what? Because I don't know. I don't know if it's like a weird question. I'm gonna send it to
Im-
you on. I'm gonna send it
oh,
to you
okay.
on DM. Okay. And if you say, you know what,
Send it to me on DM.
that's not something
Oh,
I'm comfortable talking about. Okay. And you'll forgive
yeah.
me if
No,
it's
that's
okay.
fair. Oh yeah.
Hold on.
No, 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 no. It's completely fair. I'm very open. Everybody on the
Yeah.
stream knows that.
Yeah.
So it's completely fine.
Hold on. Um. Uh, okay. All right.
Um,
I don't know if this is a private conversation or public. That's all I want to say.
let's ask it after I get to this point. I
Okay, sure,
will.
sure.
I think if that's a thought that a lot of people have, and I would love to address that as
Okay,
somebody who focuses on the data, and
exactly. Yeah.
I could definitely bring that forward to you. Okay, so like for example, I've heard libertarian arguments in the United States
Oh,
free to do things. Yeah, I know, right? People should
it
be
glitched.
free.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. People should be able to be free to use their liberties to like discriminate against trans people, for example. Right? The government should not intervene in the way a local government says,
Yeah.
oh, for example, like, trans kids can't play in the state or trans kids
Right.
can't get medicine and
Right.
things
That's
like
the
that. And
paradox. There are things like that. Like, honestly, I mean, didn't we fight a civil war over this? Or the United States fight a civil war
yeah,
over this very question, right? Like,
yeah,
okay, do we free sleeves everywhere? You know, or do we let the states handle that? You know,
yeah, right,
That's a weird one. That's a weird one because
right.
yeah. Yeah, because if you
Yeah,
believe in your fucking principles, Mr. Local Man, all right, I guess you're okay with that happening. And it's like, if I want to be consistent, I have to say, like, yeah, yeah, sorry, right? That sucks, but I mean, I
you cut out. Oh no,
think, oh, yeah,
you cut out for like 5 seconds. Repeat what
right,
you just
right.
said. Oh, you're
Since when? Oh shit.
no 5 seconds.
All right. I don't know.
You
Where
were
was I?
you said local. You said local. So
Oh yeah,
I guess
Mr.
the
Local Man, if you believe in your
yeah
fucking shit, right? Then I guess
yeah
you'd be okay with them sleeving, liberating slaves more incrementally. You know?
yeah
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah,
right right
exactly.
right.
And what kind
So
of person does that make you? Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So you would say that for things like human rights
Mhm.
and things like that, the government should step in to make sure that people have their rights, right?
Yeah. Where do you draw the line on that? Where
Well,
do
as
you
far as
draw the
human rights
line
are.
on? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No,
Well,
no,
I
but I mean,
mean, the
how many? Sorry, how do you? How important is that to enforce? Right? Are the states not civilized enough to like? Sorry, I'm sounding like a states' rights guy, but I'm talking about like
I
no,
know
no,
this is why libertarian arguments are really hard to be a part of.
right, right,
But
right,
go ahead.
exactly. No, I'm thinking more like a European arrangement, right? Like they came into their progressive values kind of gradually, but at the same time as well. You know, there was no
Yeah,
like central government, uh, directing the whole of Europe, really. Okay, for a long time, but slowly and surely they, or slowly, yeah, they started turning into liberal democracies out of monarchies, right?
right.
That was a big change, and okay, we fought a world war over that one, basically, right? So that's it. It's just, but it got there and it got there quicker. But we have more centralized things, so it's harder to move this ship sometimes. Maybe in the wrong direction, maybe in the right. Or but when you do get it moving, it's harder to get the momentum back in the other way. So you better move in the right fucking direction, right?
Well,
So
I mean, the overcorrection is just a
yeah.
natural human phenomenon. Like, for example, trans used to just mean binary trans person. So
Mhm,
trans man, trans women. There wasn't like inclusion of non-binary people. And now, even though trans people, like non-binary people, are and can be trans,
mhm,
um, we now say trans and non-binary,
mhm.
and now we're going back to the swing of like trans identities that are non-binary and binary,
Oof.
right? And then it will go back to being trans again because trans will then include non-binary this time and not have the connotation that it had in the 60s and then the 70s and 80s and
Right. I think
90s.
yeah,
You
I
know?
think the relationship. I think the relationship of at least this part of the world with the concepts of gender is yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely. So like the
Just
way those
let it be more
things
local, let it
evolve.
be more liberal, you know?
Right, so for me, I don't fear the overcorrection,
Mhm,
right? Like, if we are going to codify rights for trans people
mhm,
and in the process, let's say a church charity shuts down because they don't wanna serve trans people anymore, and
mhm.
because of that, a
What if they
bunch of
don't
people
wanna
who.
serve cis white people? Should we break that up too?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
really?
Absolutely,
Really?
yeah. Like, if they are not serving cis white people, then that's a
Well,
problem.
okay, it's just cis white
They
people.
need to
Let's
serve
say okay,
people.
it's not about cis white people, hold on. It's about, like, let's say, uh, just a certain amount of people make you feel uncomfortable. Like, like, I
Oh,
wanna go out, I wanna have a good time, I don't wanna be uncomfortable around this kind of person, right? And,
don't go outside.
yeah, don't go outside.
Don't go
Okay,
outside.
okay.
I mean, like, so for me, it's like, though I am like I'll just be blunt, right?
Mhm,
I don't give a fuck if some guy looks at me and it's like, "Ew, gross, a trans woman." I
mhm.
don't care. I'm a trans
Yeah,
girl.
yeah, I'm
Like,
living my life, sir.
your sensibility means 0 to
Yeah.
me. Your uncomfortability, I'm not saying you as a you
No, no,
person.
no, I
I'm
get
just
it,
saying,
I get
like,
it,
the
I get
general you. If a person is upset by seeing that, I don't care about that person's feelings.
it.
You
Mhm,
know what I mean?
right.
And so that's what I mean. Like, the issue becomes when, and this is why the trans issue is a problem, because there's two reasons why we don't have the Equality Act in the United States.
Mhm.
Well, there's a lot of really
Yeah.
really bad reasons, but the reasons that they put forward are protection of women
Hmm.
via like not letting trans people into like the spaces that are deemed what people are
Right.
space. So like
Oh,
women's
okay, right. That's right.
shelters,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
prisons,
That's right. The bath.
sports
Yeah, the
teams.
bathroom's derp. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, the
Yeah,
bathrooms, right?
yeah.
Like that's one of the reasons why they say trans people shouldn't have those rights. And the
Mm,
second reason is religious,
mhm.
because religious institutions are saying, "Oh, they're coming in here and forcing us who we can serve in our community," which is effed up because if you have a space that is serving the community like a soup kitchen, right?
Right.
And you bar trans people who need access to that soup kitchen because
Mhm,
everybody else in the community has that access, then a church shouldn't be able to say, "Oh, go hungry." Like that's not, because everybody's supposed to have access
mhm,
to those community spaces when they're deemed community spaces.
mm,
And this has actually been argued on the Senate floor. We actually did a giant stream on them going over the Equality Act when they were doing the hearing. And this Catholic this woman who represented Catholic ethics. I think that's what her position was, and she worked
mm,
for this like Catholic think tank or whatever it was. She literally said that church organizations save over 20,000 American lives in the United States via shelters, foods of insecure people, and actually providing those things. And their direct response was, and if we were forced to shut down, or if we were forced to serve trans people with those same services, we're going to shut them down and those people are dead. Like literally trying to make that argument first. Like, not all those churches are going to shut down because that's not how that works. A lot
mhm.
of those churches already serve members of the community who are
Right, they're
trans,
their own
and it's,
communities, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's like the local stuff, right? Like you were talking about.
Yeah,
So majority are probably being served already, but there's a small majority of bad will churches
yeah.
that say they will shut their doors to the homeless altogether if they are forced to serve trans people in a public square. And so using that argument and using freedom of religion to try to justify their bigotry toward an entire class of people in the public square. Like, we're not telling them they have to let them in the church or whatever.
Right.
Like we're just saying, or make them, sorry, you do have to let them in church because it's a community church. It's open to the
Mhm,
public. So you would have to allow people to go into that
mhm.
space. That's why they're nonprofits. But we're not going into their clergy, right? We're not
Right.
telling them how to govern their church like politics
Are the
inside.
cities are the cities not able to tell this, "Not in my town. You can't do this in my town," you know? "You can't not have
Uh
people in my town."
some Unfortunately, no, because we don't have the Equality Act. Because we don't have the Equality Act to be the law of the land. Now, we do have some states that have passed their own version of the Equality Act. So,
Mhm.
yes, there's a
Okay.
couple states across the country, but there's still like 13, 14 states that
Yep,
serve a lot of people that are
yep,
not doing it.
yep.
So that does exist. And so I find that level of rhetoric for the sake of freedom, and then using just inaccurate science about like trans women going into supported shelters and prisons and all that stuff, like those are non-issues, right? Those aren't real problems that are happening
Right,
in society.
no, whatever whatever is actually happening to people, it's like you don't wanna treat them like they're not human, you know?
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
exactly. So would you say that you would be in favor of not allowing those institutions to whole cloth reject an entire type of person for the sake of their religious reasons or just transphobic beliefs?
Mm, yep. That's to be consistent, that's what I would have to say. That
You
would
would have to say
I
what?
don't I guess that's what I would have to say, like,
That that they should be allowed to?
uh, yeah.
Because, I mean, where do you draw the line then? Do
Alright,
we
where do
only
you draw
draw
the
the
line?
line at race? Do we like, is race
Oh,
laws?
as far as yeah, that's right. No, that's right. No, this also applies to race, right?
Yeah,
Like, of
yeah,
course,
because it
you
applies to
want
race,
yeah.
sex,
Mm,
orientation, All of those
Okay.
things. Like, so if you draw the line that say you could discriminate against trans people in this particular instance, and you could say, oh, well, then I can also do the same to black people,
Right. Yeah, no, that's the argument. That's exactly the
right?
argument. That's yeah, that's like, where are you willing to go with this thing? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So would you will so you would say that yeah, we should protect all people for the sake of protecting people's equality and basic human decency, right?
Hmm. I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
What do you mean?
Maybe. Sounds like a good
Well,
question.
maybe.
I'll ponder it.
Okay, you're pulling a CTV right now.
Am I? Okay.
CTV literally said, "I don't know."
Okay. He's allowed not to know, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's
I
allowed
guess.
not to know. Is that
Yeah,
wrong? Not knowing is
I
wrong?
no. How about this? How about this?
Mhm.
I I would love for you to give me an answer at some point. Not today, not tonight. Maybe in a
Alright, fair
week.
enough. Yeah.
Ponder it for the
No,
end
I'll
of the
give you a
year.
good faith answer. You know what? I might say, you know what? Yeah, that one, yes, I guess so. Or yeah, what designates a thing that we should, that we should put at that level, or the other level. Whether or not it's like accurate or not, I'll just give it my best guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
obviously, like you know me, you know a lot of trans streamers, and by now
Yeah,
at this
yeah,
point,
absolutely.
and
And
like
I look, I think it's absolutely fucking ridiculous that we don't treat humans like humans, you know?
yeah,
It's
like let's
fucking
say this
stupid. Yeah,
way.
yeah, forget it.
If I committed a crime
Mhm.
that forced me to serve time,
Mhm.
and you would say that it would be fucked up to put me in a boy prison, right?
Mhm.
Would you say that? Or would you
To
say,
be
"Ah,
fucked up to put you in a boy prison. Oh, okay. Uh, yeah, yeah.
ah!"
You're like, yeah. I'm not. I don't know how I'm gonna. Well, I guess that's all prison.
I mean, yeah, well, I
You
mean,
gotta,
prison
gotta
sucks
the strap.
regardless.
Yeah.
You know, prison sucks regardless, but should someone like myself or any trans woman be subjugated to go to a male prison?
Right. Yeah. It doesn't seem real. Yeah. It doesn't
It
seem
doesn't
real.
seem realistic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It does,
Exactly.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Very good point.
So that's kind of what those
Yeah.
transphobic laws create, right? They create these barriers and boundaries that actually put real people in danger. If I go to a male prison, I'm fucking dead.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's the end of Josie. Like that's it. Like, if I'm in a girl
Only
prison, maybe I'll stand a chance.
right. Right. That's a scenario best left to your imagination sometimes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So yeah, so just ponder on it, think about
Yeah, I
it,
will.
right?
Okay, good. It's
Because
very good question.
yeah, right? Because like in reality, it's like you know me, you sitting here with me. It's like there's no real doubt, right, of who I
Right.
say I am and what I am and who
No,
I
no, no.
am as a person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, no. You have certain
Yeah.
pattern. You have certain patterns of behavior and stuff that I recognize as traditionally other things. Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Okay, go for it.
It was faster than getting water because there's a bottle of scotch in here.
Oh, okay. I don't think that counts as hydration, but go for it.
No, no. It's not that I need hydration. It's just I kind of smoke my joint, right, and I get the
Yeah.
pasties. I get the
Oh, I know what
pasties.
you mean.
And I
I know
just
what you
need to
mean.
wet the beak, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. I totally understand. Okay.
It's like
So
lip gloss, really. It's beautiful.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
get it.
yeah.
Totally. So, let me drink mine too. Same. Okay. So, I do want to talk about the
You're very
question you
fun, by the
DM
way.
me.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks. I
yeah.
appreciate it. I try to be, I'm a cozy political streamer, and
Perfect.
I try to be, very I do enjoy these one-on-ones and I appreciate your
Mm, mm. Yeah, thank you.
looking and challenging
Thank you for
yourself.
meeting me. Thank you for taking the time. I'm glad we got together. Okay,
Yeah,
please
yeah,
continue.
absolutely. So
Mhm.
do you want to get into the question DM me?
If it's all right with you, I thought I'd
Okay,
send it to you. I
let me
trust you with
introduce
that
it.
because I
Let me
don't yeah,
introduce it.
yeah,
I'll
sure.
introduce it for you. So everybody, just want to just let everybody know that we are going to talk about uh sexual harassment when it regards to like trans identities. So we're gonna take this very light, and I think we're all in good faith here.
Mhm.
And I'm going to use quantitative data to show this and have this conversation.
Okay.
So I just want to just let my audience know to give them an opportunity to just give them an opportunity because I know when it comes to issues of sexual assault, it can be very triggering, especially for trans people because of the things that you were saying earlier.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me pull up your question. Yeah, absolutely, everybody. Let me see. Boop, boop. Okay. So your question is the correlation between being trans and past sexual abuse. Okay. So I'm guessing, and I'm gonna assume here,
Mhm.
because I need to be able to couch this in a way that it's educational, right?
Okay.
Because like in my community, we talk gender a lot. There's a lot of people
Mhm.
in my community that are exploring their gender identities, and this is a very safe, cozy place for these type of talks. So
Mhm.
when you bring up the correlation between transness and assault and abuse, are you
Mhm.
saying are you trying to bring that correlation up for a reason?
Yeah.
Or, can you
Yeah, yeah,
explain
okay, yes, okay,
why that's relevant?
this is why I asked the question, okay?
Mhm, please.
I'm very friendly, I talk to a lot of people, people like talking to me, generally, right? It seems to me, and this is very anecdotal on my part, okay? And I
Yes.
don't know what the actual, thing is. I wouldn't even know how to sift through it. So anyways,
I'm taking you at
so
good faith. Don't
yeah,
worry.
yeah, yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
so so this is but it seems like, when you encounter someone and you get to know them, eventually, you come around to a story of when they share, personal stories about themselves, right? And it seems like there's a very high correlation of these types of relationships, right? And I'm just like, I don't know. I even tried to look it up. I don't know to see, but that's it. I thought I'd ask you the question. All
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. So first there like correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right. Okay.
Remember like, and anecdotally let me pull up the data. I'm going to pull up
Hmm.
the data because that's what I do. Give me a second while I pull up the correct study because I don't want to be wrong because I want to use more than anecdotal. No, no, no offense to you at all.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I ask questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't pretend I
Uh
know things. Come on.
yeah, of course, of course. Okay. Survey. Where's my reports? There's my reports. Boom, 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 boom.
They ask, "What's the rhetorical purpose of bringing this up?" I like getting to know people and their stories and how they think about the world.
Boom, 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 boom.
And if you like such things, join me at twitch.tv/Montreal
Yeah,
Player. Okay,
yeah, for sure,
where
for sure.
I try to have conversations like this with a variety of people.
Sorry, I have to go
Uh,
through this 300-page document. Uh, 197. And I
I
will
might
I will send you I will send you this report myself so you know what I'm looking at. Oops, oops. Let me
on
do this
Wednesday.
correct.
Hopefully, I'm talking to Universal Discourse about cults and extremism, to which apparently she's done a lot of study and
So
work.
I just sent you the same study. I highly suggest, even though we're coming up with the new report next year,
Mhm,
I'm running that project.
mhm,
These numbers are still very relevant.
mhm.
So let me go into. Am I in the right place? Here we go. All right. Okay. Okay. So it's not most.
Okay,
So
not
nearly
most.
half, it's not
Okay.
most. So nearly half,
Mm,
47% of the respondents that took this survey
mhm.
had experienced some form of sexually assault in their lifetime.
How many?
What 47%
Okay, wow.
out of 28,000 respondents.
Mhm.
1 in 10 respondents in the survey were sexually assaulted in the past year. And more than half, here's the kicker,
Mhm.
more than half of the respondents that answered that experienced it from an intimate partner.
Mhm.
So the idea is a lot of this isn't even early trauma. A lot of this is coming from like domestic partnerships and
Mhm.
living with people, which even in cis
Mhm.
relationships or heterosexual relationships, that's a problem, right?
Mhm. Right, right, absolutely.
So yeah. That is the actual numbers. Now, I will tell you, and I'm gonna say the
Yeah, what do
trepidation.
those numbers tell you? Yeah.
Okay, so I will say this. The numbers tell you that there's no correlation to that to being trans. Right, at
Okay.
all. Because if it's less than the
Okay,
half of
yeah.
the population, right,
Right.
and more than half of that population was assaulted by an intimate partner,
Right,
then
exactly.
you and we don't know how much of those people were actually affected in childhood. Even if you were generous to say at least half of that, then
Mhm.
that would be a quarter of a half of a quarter
Okay.
would be children if you were to be charitable, right? So right there you can throw out the correlational idea that
Mhm.
this abuse has anything to do with trans identity, because there's just so many people who don't experience that. And
Mhm.
also in that study, it doesn't mean that these people were sexually assaulted before they were trans. Right?
Okay, right.
Because a
That's right.
lot of people who are sexually assaulted
Mhm.
that are trans when it happens
Mhm.
because of the violence that trans people experience whole cloth.
Yes, does being trans make you more vulnerable to, well, I mean, clearly it does, but,
Yeah,
or yeah, does being trans make you more
absolutely.
vulnerable to, yeah, sexual assault? Which
So
is
so
which is
so I it
which is
is,
why
it does.
we're going for not boy prison.
I'm wrong. I completely forgot this whole sentence. Nearly half, 48 response to the sample. Oh wait, that's wrong way to put it. Oh, sorry. Um, this is okay. That's right. So nearly half of the respondents. Yes, most of them were when they were trans. So we only know from the 47% number that they were assaulted at some point in their life, and we can't get more granular on that because the survey is already 700 something pages long,
Mhm.
or 700 questions long. So there's a lot of granularity there, and there's also data that we have to be very careful with for the fact that when you're talking about childhood sexual abuse, it's like more restricted. That data,
Mhm.
like right.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, right. So we can't like let everybody know like what that is.
Sure.
But we can ascertain, just like you can ascertain from being queer or gay,
Mhm.
that used to be the same thing that people used to say about gay people, right?
Oh,
Oh, people are
really?
gay
Was it?
because yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It was a very big trope.
Maybe that as well, actually. I mean,
Yeah, right,
yeah,
and
exactly.
so people try to justify why somebody could be trans by
Mhm.
using trauma or past experiences to be able to do that,
Mm.
which is not the case. Just
Right.
like if you're born gay, you're gay,
Mhm.
and the traumas that happen in your life are secondary to the fact that you're already gay. It's
Right.
the same way with being trans.
Yeah.
Now trans people are very vulnerable,
Mhm.
because they don't have the ability to speak out a lot of times, and that can be very, very dangerous. That's why that language can be very harmful, because it's usually used to be weaponized against trans people, where it's
Mhm.
like, oh, you're just trans because you were abused as a kid, just
Right.
like they used to do for gay people, right? and
Mhm.
and trying to like proximate like why somebody's trans, because trans is so unnatural that you must have been abused and traumatized to be this unnatural being that you
Right.
are,
That's right.
right? and
Right,
and
right.
that's where a
You're
lot of
an
that.
orc, or you're one of those fucking, yeah, things they modified,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and that doesn't actually really give credit to the trans experience, because the trans experience is so much richer
Mm.
in a lot of ways beyond our trauma,
Mhm.
right? Because is there a lot of issues
Yeah.
with people being just fucking bigoted toward trans people, and we have to deal with the trauma all the time? Yes. But the reality is too, though, that
Mhm.
everybody who goes through social transition feel better. Their ideation goes down. The ability
Mhm.
to socially or medically, if they choose,
Oh,
life
okay.
and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So, is there any other question? Because, like, would you agree that with the quantitative data that I gave you, as well as like just the experience, that you would not see a correlation, or not correlation, but any type of
Well,
causation?
that's the thing. I realized that my visibility on any kind of information like that is very limited. I have there's only so much bandwidth I can expend
Of
on
course,
this type of issue in my life, right? But
of course.
you're here. This seems to
Yeah,
be something you care about, and I felt I want to ask that question. And it also might be I realize that there might be also like a lot of bias to my anecdotal like vision of it, right? I am also hearing about these people basically online. Online attracts a certain type of person mentality and stuff like that. Maybe it's an intersection of things, right? But it's just like from my
yeah.
visibility, it seems that way. And I'm like, and that's it. So I wanted to ask.
Yeah. So, because you're in my
Hmm.
chat's gonna hold you accountable,
Okay.
that to the question, which is, do you think that there is causation between somebody's sexual assault and being trans?
Um, well, from what you were saying, and what I imagine is like, no, but that's what I was saying before. The being trans makes you more vulnerable to sexual assault. Does it?
Right.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
does.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
does,
exactly.
because society's super effed up to us, but one
Yeah.
doesn't precede the other.
When
Does
does it?
that make sense?
When doesn't?
So 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 somebody getting sexually assaulted doesn't make them trans or turn them trans, or that's what
Right.
I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to
I
connect
get it.
that dot.
Yeah.
So you
Okay.
don't
No, I get
believe
it.
that, right? Okay.
No, no, I don't believe anything. I want to ask your opinion, and then I want to think about it
Okay.
when I listen to this again. And hopefully,
Okay.
some people in chat will listen to this and also think about it.
Yeah, yeah, people were like, "Answer the question."
Answer the question. Okay, okay, okay. Here we go. Okay, here we go. And ask me the clear question again, and I will give you my honest answer.
Okay.
All right.
Do you think that there's any causation whatsoever with being sexually assaulted and
Hmm.
and that incident leading to a person being trans?
Oh, I mean, it would seem not. It seems like trans is being its own thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yay! Okay, you did it. Thank you. Thank you.
There we
Thank you.
go.
Yeah, my chat will get you. My chat will get you.
You know what? It's not that I don't want to answer the question. I just like talking about the idea, right? Like we can
Yeah.
play this game. If you feel I'm being evasive, just let's
Well,
play one
yeah,
of these
these
games where you
birds
ask
got
me a clear
talons.
question. Yeah, yeah.
These birds got talons. Don't worry.
Okay,
They,
perfect.
they can be cozy most of the time, but
Okay,
sometimes
perfect.
they're just like, no, you're
Yeah,
fine.
perfect.
You're in the
Yeah,
clear. They're happy. They're happy. They're saying, okay, fair, finally. All right. We're
yeah.
good. You even got a good job. Like, no, no,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. No, we're I'm not just doing this for the meme. Like, no, seriously, we
Oh,
are happy that you said that.
thank you. It's
So
nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. All right.
oh, you got a little puppy.
That's right.
Um yeah, nice.
Aw.
So no, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you answered that question, because it is something that we have to struggle with as trans people, right?
Mhm,
Because a lot of times, like for example, if you're stopped by the police, more than likely the police officer is going to think you're a sex worker, and then
mhm,
you're assaulted for it. Like you're walking down the street being trans at night, and then somebody comes and assaults you because they think you're a prostitute and they think they can just put their hands on you. Like
mhm,
that stuff really does happen. And that's where a lot of that vulnerability is happening, where like people are literally getting assaulted by police officers, and because you
mhm,
have no power in a lot of ways, right? And so a lot of times when it comes to being trans, like you are more susceptible to violence, sexual
Mhm.
abuse, discrimination, losing your job, losing your housing. I have all these numbers. So you could look at that survey and you could see all this stuff. I'm not just pulling things out. This is like quantitative data.
Right.
All of those things all are wrapped up into what it is to be trans. And that's why those levels of discrimination create such a mental stress on people,
Mhm.
right? Because it's like if you were walking through life and people were just like, "Screw you, dude, you're not a guy," and you're just like, "What the fuck?" Like,
Yeah, yeah.
if it's just like, you know what I mean? And like
Mm,
living with that all the time, like I screenshot all of the transphobic hate that I get on Facebook and Twitter.
mhm.
I save them on my phone in an archive,
Never
right?
know.
Because
Never know. Maybe
right?
you cash in on one of them.
Maybe, but the thing is that I keep that to like as a reminder to the cis people that this is not something that is solved, resolved, or just because it's a slightly better for some trans people doesn't mean it's better for all of us. And we're still this was a record-breaking year for murders of
Mm,
trans women in particular. And like that's the true fear that I worry about. Like I can never go to I'm Puerto Rican. I can't go to
mhm.
Puerto Rico because I'm afraid. I'm straight up afraid because women prettier than me have been burned alive in cars. Okay? Like, you know what I mean? And so for me it's like that is such an existential threat,
Mhm.
and it's very terroristic to live in a
Right.
society where you think like, "Oh my god," like just the other day here in San Diego, very liberal place, very like
Right.
in Hillcrest in the neighborhood of San Diego, right?
Right.
A person in broad daylight assaulted one of my friends, beating her, punching her while people stood around wondering what the fuck was going on. The person jumps in the car and they still haven't caught the guy. The guy's still at large. And it was just like right in the middle of the neighborhood, right, in San Diego. And she's a personal friend of mine, a veteran, somebody who served,
Mhm.
right? And she's an older trans woman in her 60s, and she's getting assaulted brutally because of that. And it's
Right.
like and that's a constant fear
Yeah.
that trans people do, just walking trans, just walking
Exactly.
around being trans. And so I know I'm passionate about this issue and I've talked a lot about it, but that's why this stuff is important, because
Mhm.
people try to invalidate our existence all the time, and they try to use data points that
Well,
are not
you make a great case
connecting.
for maybe the federal government should ensure that people get treated like humans. Hmm?
Yay! Yes!
Yay!
Yes!
Yay!
Yes, right?
Okay.
And that's simple. We do it already, right? And we should just
Right.
do it for everybody and
Right.
afford people the ability to just live. So
Mm.
thank you, Montreal. I appreciate you
Yes.
turning change. I know. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me and the community here,
Mm.
as well. And I do appreciate you saying that.
That's
And
a
sometimes it's not a given.
oh, it's fine. I loved this has been wonderful. It's time for us to part ways though. But
Yes,
I hope we can do
absolutely.
this again sometime. Let's end
I
this on a high
want
note.
to. I
Yeah.
really do. And I really appreciate you having this open conversation. I know it always kind of comes to trans issues, but I think it's
Mhm.
important to like know where we stand on the platform, because there's a lot of trans people here that not just on my channel, but just on the community
Right,
at
right. Just
large.
yeah, yeah, here on the
And we
internet.
just
Yeah.
want yeah, we just we just
Yeah.
we just want to interact with the marketplace of ideas that the Twitch
Exactly.
politics gives us, right? And
Absolutely.
and and that's all we wanna do. We don't wanna always be arguing our existence. That's super frustrating when
Mhm.
you're having
Yeah,
a
yeah, right,
conversation
right.
with
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
who's, like,
yeah,
doesn't want you to exist.
yeah,
So
yeah. Exactly.
where do you start on that, right?
Yeah, yeah, so,
So
number 1, we probably disagree.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
absolutely, absolutely.